Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 001 Radio Gamescast, episode number 22. I hope everyone's happy to be here. I'm your host, Ryan, and I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Ben.
Hello, I'm here again.
Yeah,
I was going to turn that into a song. I just totally fucking didn't.
Good job.
Yeah.
Brett.
Hello.
Apologies for the swear words.
And Wyatt.
Plot twist, I'm not happy to be here, so...
Wow.
Well, you
Yeah,
can leave
I mean-
whenever you want.
Yeah, get out of here.
No,
This
I'm
is a
here now.
voluntary-
this
This
is
is
a-
gonna have to deal with me
Yeah.
It's
and
not
my
voluntary
crappy
anymore. There's a
attitude.
sign-up sheet. There's a
Oh.
spreadsheet. You
Oh,
can't
he has
leave.
to be here.
Right.
Yeah, you're legally
Yeah.
obligated. If you say you will be here, you're obligated to be here until further notice.
Punishable
And if you're
by
not
bug
here, you...
snacks.
Oh, God. I don't want to deal with that.
You know,
Yeah.
we're gonna
No,
go ahead and
that's
skip
not
right
good.
past that. Okay, so Wyatt and Brett, you were here last week. We had our wonderful little argument about the 001 Radio Gamescast Greatest Game Award of 2020 edition. So, we've got a next round of this. We've got a new contender in the rank.
Is this the 2021 edition?
No, this is
Yes.
the 2020 edition, because we're not to
It's,
2021
it's
yet.
Bug Snacks, but we'll talk about the runners up after.
Yeah, Bug Snacks needs to release before we can judge it.
How many weeks in a row will we
no,
say
I
that
think-
Bug Snacks is the best?
I think by what we've seen so far, it is the best game. Just from the trailers, it's already the best.
Okay.
Yeah, you could probably say that.
Can you give me a cliff notes of the argument
Well, the,
and the standings thereof?
What-
Say
what's
the one
going
who
on?
won.
we take a few games, and I have selected these games from like the OpenCritic and Metacritic lists of top-rated games of this year. Criteria is essentially that it is not like new content to an existing game. Like Persona 5 Royale is not eligible because it's new content for an existing game, which would
Okay.
have probably won if we were doing this in that year, but we weren't. So it's out of contention. All right, so last week we talked about The Last of Us Part 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Half-Life Alyx, and decided we'll let Half-Life Alyx have its 1 week in the spotlight before it probably gets crushed by whatever it's going up against this week. So this week, Half-Life Alyx is up against Dreams.
Well,
Well, having just played something wonderful last night, once again on Dreams, The Passion of Humpty.
Yeah, Dreams is I think something we are all a little bit more familiar with
Mm-hmm.
compared to Half-Life
one
Alyx.
degree.
Oh my!
Although
yeah,
I-
don't know.
I keep meaning to get the full version. The only thing I've played is like the free version, and I played what's like the game that Media Molecule made with Dreams that they included with it? What's it called?
I forget. I have not played it. I don't know.
It's
Probably
it's,
called
it's really
the game that
interesting.
Media
It's this
Molecule made with
it's
Dreams.
this interesting like kind of point and click thing that's from the perspective of like a washed up jazz player. It's really and the
Yeah.
art style is super interesting.
I've heard it's
too.
pretty fun, although I've just been having tons of fun with the stuff that players have made. So
It did blow my mind while I was playing. I was like, this feels like something that a legit indie studio would release. Not like a AAA thing, but more of like an indie studio type of project. And it's like the fact that
Yeah.
you can do this and they made this with their own engine is nuts. Like it's really well.
Yeah, no, Dreams has a lot of like tools and like you can make a lot of different shit in Dreams.
yeah, you
It's
definitely
very
can.
versatile.
And we talked a lot about Half-Life Alyx last week, and basically it's probably going to be the benchmark for VR going forward.
Yeah.
But
Probably.
VR is still very niche
Mm.
and not something a lot of people get to experience. Like even I have a VR system, and just because of like living situations and whatnot, playing it is still a major bit of contention of having the time to set it up,
Right.
and go through the process. It's great when you can, but it is a process.
Can we also, while we're on the topic of VR, can we just say rest in peace, Oculus Rift. Rest in peace.
We're going to talk about the Oculus Rift more through the Gamescom stuff, so that can wait. Right
Okay.
now, it's Half-Life Alyx versus Dreams. I know I personally lean towards Dreams just because I like seeing the creativity at play from people.
Yeah.
I think Dreams is just, I don't know. VR for me has always been a glorified tech demo. And
I
I haven't
agree with
played
that.
Alex, so I can't really comment on that, but I know for a fact I can't sit down and play or stand up, I guess, a VR game for 8 hours straight like I can something like Escape from Tarkov.
Yeah,
like it just
there's
is not
very
going to happen.
little
It's just
stuff
not going to
that's on
happen.
that level.
It's just not as engaging as far as
I think that's a
the
you
technology.
Thing. That's a you thing.
Well,
100%.
no,
I
think
chalk
that
it up
I think
to-
if once the tech gets a little bit better and a little bit more immersive and a little bit less
preferably
pixelated,
wireless would be great.
and preferably wireless, because
that's the
I'm always
thing.
kind of focused on things outside of the VR rather than the game. Sometimes.
I
don't know.
really kind of
But that
just
is
blame
definitely a
that.
thing.
I really just kind of blame that on like the technology is still really new.
Yeah.
And
No,
we need to
and
work with
I'm,
it more.
like-
Developers need to work with it more, and I think eventually it'll be.
I'm not saying it's
that-
never going to get there, obviously.
Yeah, well,
because-
but no, I agree with you in that I think
Yeah.
right now the technology is too young for it to interest me personally, because
right.
it feels like this really big barrier to entry for games that don't really seem like it's worth the time to do
Yeah.
so. So
Because
Yeah,
it's just so expensive,
fair
so much
point.
work, and then it's just like, oh, I can. I mean,
some
like,
fun mini games or something. and
yeah,
that's it.
basically.
All right.
So I will say it literally is mind blowing the first time you do VR. Like,
And Beat Saber is still some of the most fun I've had playing video games, period. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to beat good VR games, but they are certainly niche, and they take setup, and they're not like when I think I'm just going to go and play a video game, I usually don't jump to VR. I jump to home
your
console
PC,
games.
because
or
you can
PCs.
just, or your PC or whatever, you can just
Yeah,
sit in
whatever
your
you've
chair
got
and be like,
available.
oh,
You can
I
just
want
sit,
to
relax, and play something. Because sometimes
Skyrim
you don't
right
want
now.
to be,
Yeah.
if you're running around all day, you don't want to be running around in VR, unless maybe you're that kind of person. I don't know. I don't judge.
Well, some people like to exercise for fun, and I mean that's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Beat Saber
to me, but-
is a great way to do cardio if you don't like doing cardio. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, that is like that's getting into Beat Saber versus Ring Fit Adventure territory, and I don't think that's really where we want to be.
right, right.
So I'll say for this week, it sounds like we mostly have a consensus of Dreams taking the title.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
for me, it's Dreams by default, just because I have some experience with it. That's it. So
Yeah, I mean, I've played Alex. It's definitely very good,
I don't know.
and it
Any
is
kind of game that,
super unique.
pumps out some masterful creation like the Passion of Humpty cannot be understated.
And Dreams is at
Oh.
an advantage here because it's kind of like hundreds of games, and not
Right,
just
it
one
really
game.
is, yeah.
And like
But I
basically a
mean-
game creation tool.
it's an infinite
If you're
amount
looking
of
at,
content.
if you're looking at what you buy, and you're judging the whole purchase as a, what's better, Alex or
Yeah,
Dreams?
Yeah.
You get a lot more bang for your buck out of Dreams.
By just the amount of
Yeah.
content alone.
huge
Yeah.
amount of content. And if you're the kind of person that likes to create things, Dreams is super great for that.
Oh, totally.
So
Yeah.
Dreams takes it this
Dreams.
week. Now we can get into
Huge
our
W.
actual topics. So we have two topics for this episode. We're going to be basically rounding up the major Gamescom announcements and anything that we find personally interesting. Gamescom is like really big and wide and has a lot of stuff going on, so we're not going to be talking about everything, far from everything, just because it's a huge conference. And there's a much better way to look at stuff. If you want to know about specific things, go to the Gamescom website. They have a ton of stuff that you can look at. But it's just far too much for us all to talk about in the like hour and a half we have here.
Yeah.
So
there's way
Yeah.
too much.
we're going to talk about the stuff that stuck out to us and any major announcements, and then we're going to spend the rest of the show talking about some early access debates, debacles, especially
Debancles.
specifically how they relate to like indie approaches and AAA approaches to early access.
Huh. That's weird. The words early access and debacle really just don't work well together, do they? You really wouldn't think they would go together, huh?
Yeah,
So
no, I've
weird.
never heard of something like that ever.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. All right, with that, we're going to move into our first set of announcements from Gamescom. So, what we'll do first, I think, is go through the like major announcements that we were shown that people probably haven't heard of, or just go quickly through the opening night live stuff, because there was a lot of updates and things that we can get out of the way very quickly. Basically, we saw some more Assassin's Creed Valhalla gameplay. Woo, snaps.
Yeah, it's gonna be more Assassin's Creed. So
Assassin's
if
It
Creed,
looks like
I think
Assassin's
they made
Creed
a
Odyssey,
mistake
essentially.
and
It
didn't make
looks
Ghost
good.
of Tsushima.
It looks very good. And I mean, visually, I don't know. I'm not the kind of person that is comfortable judging gameplay without seeing it generally, or not, without playing it, because it's not in my hands. I don't know of how similar it is to Odyssey. I've heard pretty similar, but there's definitely some differences. So we'll talk
One
more
thing-
about Valhalla whenever it comes out.
I do want to mention one thing that's really strange. Apparently, you can swap the gender of your character on the fly, which is
So
Really?
what I've
playing as
heard
two different characters.
is that the
No.
female version is the canon version, and the male is just so you can switch to like represent yourself essentially if you want to.
That's
Uh,
strange.
that's
I don't know
so-
why they would do that.
it's
I
so
feel like
That's a
if
weird way
you
to
want to
do
write a
it.
story about a woman, you write a story about a
It's-
woman.
yeah,
well, I think it's
just
the
have you
character's
play
gender
that.
probably doesn't.
Well,
play into it,
I
is
mean,
what I'd assume.
I feel like a lot of this goes back to whatever that Ubisoft guy, what's his name, who was like, females don't sell. It's probably
Oh.
has
Yeah.
something to do with that.
You
most
might be
likely.
right.
I mean, this one is. I think Valhalla has her on the cover and everything, and not the dude.
Wow, they're making some progress.
So
I'm proud of
'cause
them.
the guy that said that, I believe, is no longer part of the company.
Yeah,
'Cause
they've been doing
Ubisoft
like a
has been
big old
cleaning
purge,
house.
haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about. I think everyone all the big wigs that they've fired or asked to resign.
It always
Um,
astonishes me how like execs like that can make those kinds of statements after they release like 6 just bad games with female
Yeah.
like protagonists.
Yeah.
Like it's not because there were females in the game. It's because the game was garbage.
Yeah, like look at Horizon Zero Dawn. It's one of the best-selling PS4 games ever, and it's amazing, and it's female-only protagonist. So I don't
Yeah.
know. There's plenty of counterpoints to that, and it's usually just make a good game.
And
Yeah.
most of the time that's what it is. And execs like to point fingers at things about why their big money sink didn't sell.
I mean,
prime
it is
example is
also the
BF5.
yeah, and the just that entire sentence was poorly phrased because we're getting so many games with really strong female characters
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Like look at Control, super successful, great game, female character. Like it's just there's so many examples now where
No,
it's like, how could you even? It's like, how did you not know you were wrong as soon as you said
Absolutely.
that? Because we have so many examples now. You know.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's pretty much it for Valhalla. We'll talk a lot more
Anyway.
about Valhalla once.
that's
have
we just
more
opened
to
a
go
whole
on.
can of worms and now it's sitting in the front of my
Yeah.
brain and I'm like, fuck.
We'll have that's a discussion again for that. We'll take like an entire episode to hash out fully. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the quick thoughts on Valhalla and the whole female lead thing, debacle, whatever they're doing.
Shenanigans.
Then we got Lord of the Rings Gollum, some little rounds ups of Lord of the Rings Gollum.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That game looks really good, except for Gollum.
Yeah, that's about
So
the
it-
same reaction I had.
Gollum looks bad.
We also haven't seen real gameplay yet.
Yeah, that's true.
And what they essentially Gollum is like this weird stealth game that we don't actually know how it's gonna play. They've told us very little. They went over how like in dialogue you'll have choices, but you have to like mash the button while choices are flying across the room to like represent Gollum's and Smeagol's like split mind.
Which is weird.
I hate it.
Which, as soon as anyone says mash the button in a video game, I
Yeah.
get very nervous. So
I'm sure there's people who do want this, but out of all of the things in this entire Lord of the Rings universe to make a game around, does anyone really want a Gollum? Like, I'm sorry, maybe that's just a stupid question, but
A
like,
Gollum stealth game.
who the heck wants a Gollum? No, seriously, who wants a Gollum video
don't
game?
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Gollum is
He's a
character-
really interesting character in
Yes.
a movie.
yeah, but that's because he has
What?
like a supporting cast of characters
Right.
around him
It's-
that he
yeah.
plays off of.
I just don't who wanted this.
Yeah,
It's
that's my
so
biggest
bizarre.
question too. I this is the kind of game where I might be into it, but I don't know because Gollum has no inherent.
Well,
draw to me.
Gollum he's not a protagonist. It's
No.
And I'm
kinda-
also
I mean,
very worried that it's just going to be like a rehash of the tropes of Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, just without combat and just
Mm,
boring.
trading
like,
cards.
because the environments they showed were all in like Mordor and Moria, and like mines essentially, and there was this war camp, but it's all stuff that we've seen before, right? It's not
yeah.
like clearly we haven't seen that version of it, but we've seen very similar things in Middle Earth, and I need him to
And-
show me something different.
The trailer for it was weird too. It had this really epic music and this really epic tone for a game about
Yeah.
Gollum. Like
Yeah,
it's just so bizarre.
I don't know.
That's probably a
don't
marketing
know.
thing, to be honest. I feel like that's some marketing execs looking at trailers and what works and what doesn't. And doing
I-
that.
Yes, but like it was very weird. Watching that was the equivalent of watching the Hobbit movies in 48 frames per second. I'm like, why? Why?
That's another whole can of worms of
Deep
film
cut
stuff.
reference
So
there.
many worms.
Reaching back.
So many worms.
All right. So we did see the smallest peak, and I do mean the smallest peak at Dragon Age 4. Whatever it is, we saw
That's
very
right.
little.
Yeah. Probably wasn't really worth talking about, to be honest with you. Like,
Well, we got to mention that we saw it, right? Like, I can't not mention we saw it, but we didn't see anything of note.
we saw someone dodge out of the way of what looked like some low poly rocks with a
Yeah,
sword
we
and a
saw
shield.
concept art, essentially, and, like, concept gameplay.
Yeah.
But literally everything they showed had this big, like, concept thing slapped
Yeah.
on it.
It makes me wonder why even show that kind of stuff. You know, I
think
guess to
it's-
like build hype, but why not just show like a
I think
cool little
BioWare
teaser trailer or whatever?
knows that they're in a weird position right now because they've released
Weird
a bunch of
putting
bad
it
video
lightly.
games.
That's
They released
putting it
a
light.
series of bad video games when they used to be this
Uh-huh.
like household name.
Powerhouse. Well,
Yeah. And now they're like trying to bank on the reputation from when they were a
Dragon Age,
household
yeah.
name, but that reputation is kind of just like slowly withering away the less we see of anything they're doing. So I
That's
think
gonna
this was
be-
their like attempt to show something. They just don't.
it's gonna
have
be
a lot to
Bethesda
show.
real soon.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed was that, like I said, there was a low poly dude that was dodging some low poly rocks, and it made me think they're going to have more sort of quick, combat and less
Yeah.
less kind of not it wasn't turn based, but it was Baldur's Gate.
It was
style.
CRPG style. It was
CRPG
modern
style, and it
CRPG.
seems like it's going to be a more kind of action.
Because I
like-
mean, that's kind of how Dragon Age games have been going. Is like Origins is the most like a traditional CRPG. 2 is pretty similar. Then Inquisition is
say-
like a pretty big leap away.
I would say Origins is like very CRPG to a fault in a lot of ways because
Yeah,
it feels
because
very
it tries to do the third person perspective, but it's a little awkward.
I think the best combat is probably Inquisition, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
really
think it depends on who you are. Some people love CRPG style combat. Some people don't. I think what
Mhm.
works best for Dragon Age isn't really the CRPG stuff because it gets super overbearing and kind of just becomes like MMO. How many hot bars do I need to like do all these abilities? It does get complicated. Some people love that again. So I think it depends on the person for sure.
as much as I like Origins, the combat was not the reason I enjoyed it that much. I tolerated the combat because
Yeah.
I was so invested in the characters, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think we also might be moving towards action combat just for the sake of mainstream. And Baldur's Gate, or not Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age has a lot more competition in the CRPG space now that we're getting a bunch of indie studios like Larian, who did Divinity, the entire Divinity series, which are all great games. They're doing Baldur's Gate 3. Like they're actually having a lot of competition in that CRPG space that I don't think they feel confident going against because a lot of that competition is very, very good.
And it kind of like what you said before, I think BioWare has a much wider audience, and so they probably want to make
Absolutely.
games that appeal to as much of that audience as possible. I kind of understand,
Yeah,
and
that's
coming from the
absolutely not a
perspective-
bad thing.
Yeah, I'm coming from the perspective of someone like I would prefer a more traditional, like over the CRPG. In my
Yeah.
opinion, I would prefer a more traditional. Like that was one of the things I really liked about Mass Effect Andromeda was I thought their combat was great.
I really do hope that Dragon Age is kind of a step away from the other 3 games, just because there's been so much time between all of them that I think if they want new players, they really do need to have some either a very good catch up, or it needs to be a little bit removed from the story of the other 3,
Yeah, that
Yeah.
which
makes
all kind of
sense.
play into each other. So we'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much the Dragon Age stuff. We didn't get much. It's clear they are working on it. It's just we don't know when it's going to be, what it's going to be.
Because
I
it's
mean-
a BioWare game, I'm immediately just worried from the
Yeah.
outset. like
Considering what they had to show, I doubt it's coming out anytime soon.
I'm
Like,
Yeah.
I'm betting they're still in the like gameplay concepting phase. Maybe not concepting,
Oh,
but
for sure,
pre-production,
yeah.
and they just don't have anything finalized enough to show aside from art.
I
That's
mean,
like next
based
like
on what
4
we-
years we're looking at. I
Yeah.
feel like.
based on
Yeah,
what we
that's a
saw,
long time.
probably work from January, most likely.
Yeah, I would say this is probably going to be a 2022 game. 2022 is my like conservative bet.
That's
I'm gonna put that joke in every episode. By
Yeah,
the way.
2023 would be
yeah.
my like legitimate bet is when we actually
Every
get that
time I
game,
come
but
on,
we'll see.
every time I come on the show, I'm like, oh, there it is again.
Well,
A January joke.
guess what else is here again? Doom Eternal.
Oh,
Doom Eternal is coming
Yeah.
out with some DLC. It looks really cool.
Speaking of Game of the Year,
This will
Eternal
be in contention, I
it
think.
was really good.
Yeah, Doom Eternal is
Though-
getting the Ancient Gods DLC. This is the only thing that has me worried. This is part 1 of supposedly, I assume, 2. I don't know.
Hot take, not hot take though, but I think Doom Eternal's dashes made the game worse.
Well,
Just the way they-
debate
just-
this is a different
no.
debate. This is a completely
Just the
different
way-
thing.
I know, but we're talking about Doom Eternal, so I'm going to say it because I love
Yeah,
Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. I mean, they're both amazing games, but just the cooldown on that dash was bad. I didn't like it. Like the way they did the cooldown as opposed to doing like a hit the ground and reset. Like me and you talked
Yeah.
about this when the game came out. That's the only. That's like
It's
literally
just
the
'cause
only.
the cooldown is super hard to read. It's
Yeah,
hard to know
If there was-
what you have available
yeah.
in the moment.
it never
If you
bothered
knew-
me
yeah.
because you can kind of eyeball the cooldown time without actually having to like wait for it. It would be nice to have a more like obvious indicator, but for me, it's like I got so used to that combat loop where I could just kind of eyeball when the
yeah.
dash
I'm
is
sure you
ready.
can. It's just I don't know.
Yeah,
I
the fact
prefer
that
having
they
the-
they probably could have done something up towards the reticle, like in the center of the screen, have your reticle flashed when it's ready. Something like that would be cool. All right, so the DLC, we know it's something to do with Ancient Gods.
More Doom Eternal. Like
Yeah, it's more Doom
who's going to
Eternal.
complain
Looks
about
fun.
that?
Again, my concern is that this is part 1. I don't know how, yeah, I feel a little bit apprehensive that this is going to be like a story arc they give us and then they just don't resolve for like another half a year. And I
Right.
always get aggravated when games do that. That's why whenever like Don't Nod does something like Life is Strange, I have to wait until the final episode is released for me to actually want to play it because I want to be
It's
able to go
almost
through the
like-
entire story.
It's almost like stopping your story right as it gets to like this crescendo, only to completely rewind your story.
You know
It's
what?
a really bad
Yeah.
idea.
I want to know whose idea that was. Who? No, like releasing chapters of video
we're not
games like that.
spoiling anything.
No,
Just
but
be
like
careful.
I'm
It was
talking
Walking.
about.
I think Walking Dead was the first one, right? Telltale.
No, but like I haven't played any of those, so I'm not even like in spoiler territory. My thought is like
Yeah.
they were like, okay, so TV shows, we want to make our game kind of like, like a more of like a viewing experience, kind of walk through, TV show kind of thing. So let's take the worst thing about TV shows and put it into our game. That
it's
is
also, like-
releasing things on a weekly schedule. Like
I'm sure weekly
over
releases
time.
would probably work if like they released a
Right.
game like this over the course of a month or like 2 months instead of
right, but
2 years, right?
If they had a more set plan and they knew
Cliffhangers work when you have to wait like a week,
a week.
or maybe
My-
at the most like a month.
My
But
point is nobody likes waiting,
yeah,
even when it's only a week. So why did you
I mean,
make that
waiting
a
can
part
be
of your
fun when you have
essential?
like a week because it builds hype. Because people will
Yeah.
talk about it, they'll have theories, and that is really fun sometimes.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
do like that. Like Life is Strange, some parts of the fun parts. I think I played it when episode 4 had just come out, and there was like a wait until 5. So there was like this fun period of people debating
Yeah, like debate.
what was going to happen.
That's true.
But it just
But it's-
it needed to be shorter.
Yeah.
Like
You don't
maybe
need
a
to
month at the
debate for
most.
usually those waits are so that they can develop that next
Exactly.
chapter and
Right,
not a
which
scheduled
shouldn't be the case.
calculated wait.
right.
Because it did take a very long time to copy paste the next group of enemies onto the next multiplayer map for Halo 4 Spartan Ops, right?
all right. We're getting off topic. We're moving on. This is we're very off topic at this point. Okay, so we got an announcement of Fall Guys Season 2.
Hey.
It is a
How does that
medieval
work?
themed expansion, and I think people
Oh,
are really happy with
That's
this
fucking cool.
because they showed us like 4 or 5 new games. So they are going at a pace I think that is a lot faster than a bunch of people
Yeah.
expected, which I think is great because like swapping games in and out is I think a good way to keep Fall Guys
That's a very
fresh.
good idea.
I think
Are
a game
the-
like Fall Guys needs that
Yeah,
Are the
absolutely.
more than
Seasons-
a game like PUBG, more than a game like all those other battle royales. Even though is Fall Guys really a BR? I don't know. But
Debatably, it depends.
yeah.
Are-
But anyway, I
do
think
you
it
have to-
needs that fresh content more than those other games.
Do you have to pay for the season at all? Or is it
No.
free?
No, the season is a free update.
Cool.
Fall Guys
That
has
is-
a monetization model of like you can buy the currency you get from playing games, but you get it at a good clip from playing the game, so it's not nearly as predatory as I think it could be.
Right.
And you can't buy the currency you get for winning games. So yeah, I think it's pretty fair overall. And if you bought into Fall Guys, you're getting more content, more cool stuff. They showed some really cool outfits. You can have like a little dragon, doofy little dragon dude, Viking, knights, and a
With the-
wizard.
With the amount of content they have now, plus free seasons later on, it's a lot of content for what, $20, $30?
Yeah, $20.
However much this is. That's pretty
It
good.
is
It's hard to argue with.
one industry trend that I'm digging is like the free maps and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a good way to do,
say what you will about Battlefield 5, but they added a lot of content after launch. Of
Yeah,
course,
there's a
that should have
good
been in the
way-
game to begin with, but
there's a good way to do, battle passes in paid games
Yeah.
if you do it correctly. It's just a lot of companies tend to
don't
not.
do it correctly.
And Fall
Right.
Guys
Oh, I
also
mean,
did get it is now the most downloaded PS Plus game.
Just ever.
So yeah, in launch month of the game on PS Plus. So in the PS Plus time span, it has been the most downloaded.
Oh, I legitimately thought it was ever.
It might be ever. I don't know. I think
That's what I
it's the
heard.
same
I could be
thing
wrong.
because you can only download them
For a
in the
month.
launch period.
Yeah,
right?
that's
So-
true. That's
So
true. Yeah.
it's the same stat. But yeah, so Fall Guys, fun game, fun new season. We're gonna go at a little faster clip now to make sure we have time to talk about everything. So Star Wars Squadrons, we saw single player stuff.
Escort mission.
I don't know. I'm hyped. They showed Hera Syndulla, who's a really
I don't
cool
know.
character from Rebels that I'm excited is in the game. Yeah,
I've
looks
never
fun.
been excited about that game. I don't
It's
like
cool.
flying. I've never liked any flying in the Star Wars universe.
Well,
I do.
I think from everyone that does like flying, Squadrons looks very good.
It's
Well, fair,
yeah.
fair. I mean, that's totally a personal preference thing. I just also don't like space sims. Like, I don't like flying in space. For the most part, it makes me very disoriented and unhappy about myself.
The thing that worries me the most is that the only thing they showed off, like as part of like the story, like in terms of actual gameplay, is like an escort mission. And not only is that one of the most annoying kinds of missions to do, like in like a shooter or something where you're playing as like a character who's on the ground, but like it's like 20 times more frustrating
Yeah.
when everything is flying and you have to move at a constant speed. Like that just changes everything. It's been very annoying, and like that kind of like escorty defendy mission and like past like X-Wing games has been pretty annoying, but I kind of chalk that up to those games just being old and kind of not really super modernized. So we'll have to see how they do it, but I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing to show off.
I don't know. I'm
in my
okay
book,
with
at least.
escort missions in the style of like Battlefront 2 has a lot of like they're escort missions in spirit, but you're not actually having to like micromanage whatever you're escorting. It's
Yeah.
just you need to stop the enemy from destroying them, which is a little more fun. It's essentially a like differently themed defense.
It's a
type thing.
mobile defense,
Yeah.
mission.
All right. So that's Star Wars Squadrons. Looks fun. Coming out relatively soon, I think. We saw Little Nightmares 2, which is a like indie horror game. I don't know if anyone here has played it. It's very good.
I have
And
not.
I've heard
this
of
is
it.
coming out in
haven't.
February 2021. So yeah, anyone who is excited about that, look forward to it. Sims 4 getting some Star Wars DLC. That's about everything
Oh.
of note about Sims 4. So we're gonna move on.
Can we get
Finally
I did
drowned
think-
Kylo Ren.
I did think of something. Can we get a Sin City, Sim City
Yo,
content
actually,
pack though?
please.
Just call it Sin City.
Just literally just make it like a filter so it looks cool.
Yeah.
I had a joke. I didn't really know how to deliver
That
it,
was
but I had
not
a joke.
the
I
joke was
liked
an attempt
I
at a
liked
joke.
it. I appreciated that.
My
Thank you.
jaw is on the floor. I have no
Yeah.
idea how to respond.
Yeah.
My jaw's on the floor because I'm so blown away at how good that joke was.
See, Ben knows real humor.
Right.
Unlike you two.
All
Unlike
right.
you two
We
We
uncultured
also
swine.
have moving
You
on
rude.
because we
Oh.
got to go at a good clip here to fit everything in. Call
Yeah.
of Duty Black Ops Cold War. We got
Wow.
a cinematic trailer and the announcement that the game will have multiple endings in narrative choice.
No
Which is
way.
crazy for a
Not
COD game.
I
the
am-
first time a COD game has done this.
I know, but I
Believe it or
am
not.
far more in now than I
I am-
was before.
I am furious that it has taken them this long to bring this feature back because it's one of the things that made Black
What was
Ops
it
2's
in?
campaign
Oh,
the Black Ops 2.
Yeah. one of the
was
games.
wa-
before.
I
it
played
is
Black
still
Ops 2's
probably
campaign.
my favorite Black Ops campaign, or just Call of Duty campaign, period. And it's crazy. It has like a bunch of like different like story paths you can take. It has optional. It has these cool like XCOM style like optional missions that change the story depending on when you do them and what order you do them in. It's really freaking cool. It's such a cool campaign, and they never went anywhere with it, and it's such
Yeah.
a shame.
I don't know. I'm very excited for a new take on the Call of Duty formula. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Just because it's getting very stale, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they need to mix
Well,
up.
that was what was interesting about Modern Warfare, is that it wasn't particularly new, but it was just really well made. I think it was different in the sense that instead of being overblown set pieces, it was more about creating like tension in a more subtle way than just massive
Yeah.
explosions, which I really, really liked. And so it was more of like a refinement of like Call
Yeah.
of Duty's older campaigns than anything new. So I'm glad to see that they're not just sticking with that and they're bringing that feature back, because that was honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a Call of Duty game, and it was really well done.
It also makes it makes your campaign replayable, which is really
Mhm.
really good if the campaign is short, because
Yep.
that does give you a lot more time to like enjoy it if you're trying different paths. And
And
the cinematic
it's more-
cutscene was really good. Like the cinematic they showed, at least visually looked really good. The writing I had some issues, but it wasn't bad. It was just like very standard.
And the multiple choices, at least in Black Ops 2, was done way better than you might think, because they're like, you can either have some characters live or die, which change the ending, and they have like 20 or 30 different variations of a cutscene depending on like who lives and who dies throughout the story. There's tons of different endings. There's like a range of good and bad endings. Depending on when you play these optional missions, you can either like rescue some characters that were captured in other scenes and stuff. It was really well done. Shockingly well done, and
Yeah.
I'm really just so happy to see
Now
it.
I'm wishing I played the Black Ops 2.
All right, well
Campaign.
we're moving on
Really fun.
to
It's really good.
I'm sure we could all talk about Call of Duty for hours, but we need to talk about World of Warcraft Shadowlands now. And by talk about it, I mean we can just say that it's happening and move on for the most part.
Yeah.
Does anybody here play WoW?
No,
I don't know. I've
don't.
played WoW
Alright.
before. Shadowlands, from what I hear from people that are actually into WoW, is a really really cool expansion, but it's like it looks that way. Again, it's hard to tell before something launches how
Right.
good it is, especially for MMOs, because a lot of the time these expansions take time to go through, right? They're designed to be played over the course of like weeks to months and not a couple of days. So
Mhm.
pre-release thoughts are generally not always the most accurate. But I've heard this one is very cool. You've got like a bunch of syndicates essentially playing against each other. You go to like a vampire realm or something. I've heard a lot of cool things
I
about it.
mean,
It's got
I
like a
also-
roguelike mode.
I
I
don't
also
usually
think-
hear a lot of bad things about WoW expansions, though I know that actually.
No, I
take
hear
that
a
back
lot about
immediately.
a lot of bad
I
things. about WoW
I changed my
expansions.
mind about
Yeah.
that thought as
The
soon
fact
as it
that
came out of
the
my
thing
mouth.
that I think is the most beneficial for Shadowlands is that we are not hearing a lot of bad things, which is what we heard about BFA and I think Legion too. So, yeah, if you like World of Warcraft, this might be a reason to revisit it.
The only thing that I can really comment on is I think there's going to be a lot of people that are calling this anything Blizzard does into question after Warcraft 3 Reforged, and just how botched that entire project was. So I
Well, it's
feel like
also
there's going
kind
to be
of
a
like
lot of people.
A
That question
lot of
what
the
they do.
writing in the most recent WoW expansions has been very good. It's just like the gameplay and the content is just below par, and things just aren't thought it through as well as they should be. So hopefully this is a move towards something a little more complete, like a complete package,
Mhm.
which would be
Of
nice. Okay, so moving on to 12 minutes, we got a reveal of the voice actors. We saw Daisy Ridley, James McAvoy, and Willem Dafoe.
Pretty
Some
stacked
big
cast.
names, yeah. 12 minutes. I
Hark.
mean, this game looked very interesting when we first saw it. We haven't seen much of it. I think because this game's probably going to be pretty short and meant to be played multiple times is the feeling I'm getting.
Mhm.
So, yeah, this is just a cast reveal. 12 minutes is like this. I think it's a time loop of like 12 minutes that you play over and over again, and you have to like make different choices and do things. That was at least how they sold it last time it showed up at E3, which I think was a year or 2 years ago, something like that.
Can I just say, I loved Willem Dafoe.
Yes.
I
Yes,
He's
think
such a
everyone
good
does.
actor.
I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever seen James McAvoy in something that he was bad in. He's always like one of the best actors.
I mean,
in
this is a
anything
good
he's
cast.
in,
Like Daisy
so,
Ridley,
yeah.
I think is probably one of the better actors for voice acting that I've seen not
Yeah.
do it before, because she has a very
No matter-
distinctive voice.
And here's the thing: you can say whatever you want about the Star Wars sequels. Daisy Ridley does such a good job of injecting a lot of charisma and personality into that role. No matter how you feel
Yeah.
about it, she does a great job with what she's given.
I'm glad she's doing something else now and not just doing
Yeah.
Star Wars. That's it. Because like I'd like just being able to distance from that pile of steaming hot bantha garbage.
We're gonna not. Star Wars. We gotta move on. We gotta move on. We're gonna get
This is
into
the
a huge
Halo
argument if we
podcast
keep
now.
Podcast
talking about
We
Star
can't
anymore.
talk
Wars.
about Star Wars anymore.
All right. So, hey Wyatt, you want to know what game's next?
Ooh.
It's a little
what is it?
game
What is it?
called Limnisgate.
Hey, baby! Oh yeah.
So, Wyatt and I have actually played this game before at MIGS in Montreal. It was a ton of fun.
It broke my brain, and I don't think I'll ever recover again.
Just a bit. This is a like small team deathmatch style game where you are going through like very short time loops against the opposing team, and you're then at the next time loop, all the actions you took in previous rounds also happen again.
It feels oddly like turn-based.
Yeah,
in a way.
it's like almost a turn-based loop game. It's really, really cool. And it is very hard to describe because you
It's
kind of
even harder to figure out when you're playing.
I
for the
think if you
first time.
watch it,
I
you
had
can
no
get a
idea.
good feel for what the game loop is, but describing it's not the best.
It took me a while to get the hang of it, and
Yeah.
even then, I didn't really get like the deeper kind of strategy of it. Well, probably because
you
I didn't
can't
have
get
enough time
super
with
deep
it.
with it
but-
because you can like intentionally shoot at random things on a previous timeline, so you might hit someone in the future and chip a little health off of them. So you can do some cool stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's
So
a
it's
really,
like the
really cool
FPS
game.
of.
It's
the
like, oh,
5D
set up a
chess
turret
Yeah.
or like a
first-person
slime
shooters.
thing in this area that no one's in now, but that'll block off future like attempts for the
Yeah.
enemy team to go in that area. It's crazy.
And
Yeah,
like if you're defending
so-
an objective, it might be worth it to like throw a few extra grenades out while you're there because they might try to assault that objective again in the future. So there's a lot of like layers to it. This game's really cool. I would absolutely recommend checking this out whenever it launches. This was the announcement gameplay trailer, so I don't think this game has been like officially trailer announced before, outside of like games conventions. So yeah, it launched in early 2021. Looks great, plays great. This is one of the things I can confidently say this game plays really well, because we played it like almost a year ago now, and it was in a good state then.
Oh my god, that was a year ago.
Yeah, that was almost a full year ago. So
Oh my god,
we
dude.
played it almost a full year ago, and it was at a good state then. So I am very much hoping
Yeah.
this is good news going forward. All right, so moving past Lemniscate, we have Age of Empires 3 Definitive coming October 15th.
Cool.
Age of Empires is fun.
Age of Empires, great game. We saw Medal of Honor Above and Beyond. This is a really, really cool looking VR game by Respawn. It
I
looks
combo.
great.
I was excited, and then I remembered Warfighter, and then I was less excited.
I mean,
and then-
Respawn is
Okay,
handling
but
this, though.
that's
It's
not
a
fair. This is a
different
completely
team.
different.
I know,
team.
and then I heard VR, and I was kind of like, oh, and then I realized I don't care about VR. But anyway,
I mean, I think if
But
you're
just-
into like old school military style shooters, especially if you have VR available, this definitely looks like it'll be worth trying out.
yeah,
It seems to be pretty narrative heavy. From what we saw, there was lots of stuff going on. My bet for how this plays is it'll probably be similar to like a movie type experience where you are going through the scenes as your character and like participating in them. But it'll probably be I would bet like an 8-hour thing that you might be able to replay. That's my assumption. We don't know though. Looks really interesting. I think if you
I
have
love-
VR, great thing to pick up.
I loved the moment where you were able to shove a grenade up through like the little
Yeah.
envelope.
Mail shoot,
thing.
yeah.
That's so good.
Dude,
I
the
do.
thing that stuck
I
out to
love
me,
World War II as an aesthetic for video
Yeah,
games. And
yeah.
I love World War II games
because
I
they showed
just love-
flying and like doing flight combat as well as doing there was a scene where you're like in a room with some dudes and your guy bursts through the door and throws you a gun, and I'm like, that's the kind of stuff I love. There's gonna be more of those moments that feel supernatural.
Yeah. And if there's one thing that Respawn knows how to do, especially with shooter campaigns, is keep them have a lot of variety.
Oh
Yeah.
Which is
yeah.
something they're really, really good at. So I'm expecting something similar in this as well, because that's
Alright.
always something they've done a good
So
job.
after that, we saw Unknown 9 Awakening, which is we don't actually know, really. We know it's a game. This was
Wow.
a cinematic reveal trailer. It had some weird time stuff going on with the main little girl stopping time. Looks interesting. The name is kind of unfortunate, I think. Unknown 9
Yeah.
doesn't really roll off the tongue.
Should have been like on 9 or something.
Like
maybe.
Unknown Awakening is a better name to me than Unknown 9
Yeah, I agree.
Awakening. So I wonder if there's a reason they couldn't do that, or if this is like what they were going for. I don't know. It's weird. looks interesting. We just don't know a lot. Yeah. So moving on, we saw Sam and Max VR. Cool. We saw a World of Warcraft short. I mean, we have not a ton to go off of for a lot of these.
Right,
a lot of the stuff
right.
I'm going off of now are like announcements that were just kind of sidelined. So we got some Beyond Light stuff for Destiny. We got Bastion short for World of Warcraft. A Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormground. I don't know if anyone is like super into Stormground stuff
No.
or Age of Sigmar in general. I know Ben and I do a lot of like the Total War Warhammer stuff.
That's really
But
as far as I've
that's-
gotten into
yeah,
Warhammer.
that's-
I
Does
would
the
like to
term
play like
Age of
Warhammer
Sigmar or
Fantasy.
something at
mean
some
anything to
point.
you?
but
Okay, both of
Wait.
you said something at once.
yeah.
Does the term Age of Sigmar mean anything to you?
I mean, Sigmar is like a Warhammer character
Guy.
who is super important in the lore. So I assume that this is like around that time period. But
When he was doing his thing.
Age of Sigmar, I think, has been pretty limited to tabletop stuff and not video games so far. Unless I could be wrong about that, but at least that I've played. As well as books. I know there are some books about Age of Sigmar that are apparently really good. So I might read those at some
Yeah.
point. But it
I'm not
is
gonna
like a
pretend
more
to be
deep
a-
lore Warhammer thing.
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Warhammer lore.
There are certainly podcasts that are made up of Warhammer lore nerds that you can
Right.
find for that. We saw some more Crash Bandicoot gameplay. Again, the new Crash 4 looks very good, I think, or at least very fun.
Yep.
We saw Outriders again, which is a holiday 2020 like looter shooter style deal. Action combat looks interesting. It's this is the kind of game that's very concerning until it launches and we know it's either good or bad, because it could either be like another Destiny 1 situation of it just launching in a rough state, or maybe this will be like closer to Remnant, where it's a smaller game but more tightly designed. and
Although to their
with more
credit,
focus.
they've released a ton more information than Destiny 1 did.
Absolutely, like Outriders, I
kinda-
think we've seen a lot of gameplay.
Can I? All right, this is a small side note. I just want to say this and we'll move on. Imagine trying to launch Destiny 1 in the way that they did today, which is absolutely no information. Like they couldn't get away with that now. Something I was.
I think
thinking
it
about.
just wouldn't sell well. Is the big thing. Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. We saw Necromunda Underhive Wars, which I believe is maybe out. Maybe not. It looked kind of interesting. I don't know if anyone's super into Necromunda.
Also, no.
We saw Teardown. Teardown is this cool, like very physics-based heist game with a
That
block
looks
spell aesthetic.
awesome.
I am super into everything they
Oh,
showed.
Teardown. Hasn't that game been in development for like ever? And he's like changed what
Yes,
he was going to do.
yes.
Like he made the physics engine first, and then he made a game around it. Basically,
I believe that is the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like it's coming along really nicely. Everything they showed, like the physics look incredible.
Yeah, no, I've been keeping my eye on that because I remember seeing a video like years and years ago
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
physics engine.
But yeah, Teardown absolutely looks great. I think if
Yeah.
you're into like destruction games, this will be really cool.
I'll definitely.
I'm
check
curious
it
to
out.
see how the heist aspect plays.
Well, I remember watching a video about it not too long ago, and it was like it wasn't necessarily a heist, but he was doing like an arsonist type of thing where he had to like go through and destroy these 3 different like propane containers in like 12 seconds from after destroying the first one or something like that, and like it was cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to be just strictly heist or if it's going to be kind of like have like a demolition mode, like kind of like remember Red Faction Gorilla had that demolition mode that was super
Oh
cool.
yeah.
I hope it does. That'd be great.
I hope it has something like that. That'd be awesome.
Okay, so we're gonna kind of blaze through these last few because a lot of these are things we've heard about before and are just getting more trailers here. We saw Godfall. We've seen Godfall a bunch. It was a very short, like 10-second trailer, I think.
That's another wait till it comes out kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Godfall's on the horizon, so you're not waiting too long. It's this year. It'll be coming, I think, to PS4 and PS5. I don't know about Xbox. It might be PS exclusive. We'll see. I think they said they're coming to PC. We'll find out. We saw Override Super Mech League. This is a sequel to Override Mech City Brawler, which is a kind of fun but a little bit gimmicky, like 3D fighter style thing. That's not like a serious fighter, but it is just mechs fighting each other. It's a cool game if you're into mechs. Yeah, we got Mafia Definitive Edition story trailer. We've seen Mafia Definitive Edition a bunch at this point. We see we're gonna talk about Lego Star Wars at the end because I think there's a few more things to talk about that. We saw Struggling, which is out. You can play that game now. It's a co-op like little weird platformer where you have to like go against each other and whatnot. With a very interesting meaty aesthetic. I think if you're into like Carry On looking games, you might like this. Chorus, we got some gameplay. This was shown last year, and we basically just saw like a cinematic for it, but it's a like weird space shooter type deal. We don't fully know what it's gonna be, but we saw some gameplay teasers, which was
Place
cool.
your bets on what the next game is going to be called after some kind of musical flourish. We have Anthem, we have Chorus,
and they're all sci-fi.
Yeah.
All right, we saw a Wasteland 3 character trailer. Wasteland 3 is out. You can play it. It's on Game Pass. I've heard it's very good. Spellbreak, we saw some new cinematic stuff for Spellbreak, which is a spell-based battle royale, which we've known about for a long time. It's been playable for a while, but I believe it's officially launching on September 3rd. We saw some more Scarlet Nexus, which is a like anime aesthetic game from Xbox. Some studios at Xbox. I don't remember which one. Looks interesting. I think if you're into like anime action games, this will be up your alley. But as of right now, we still don't know a ton about it. We saw something called Quantum Error, which is a little trailer of a weird looking game. I don't know if anyone was super into this.
Little trailer of a weird looking game. I like it.
This is one of the ones that I think was announced in a weird spot. We're getting a Dirt 5. Easy. WWE 2K Battlegrounds. We saw some stuff of that weird little game that was shown at a Nintendo Direct that I think no one ever is excited for.
No, not even WWE.
Yeah, I was going to say not even
fans.
WWE fans. This doesn't look like the game they want.
Nope, not at all.
Okay, so I think the two standouts we have left are Bridge Constructor Walking Dead.
What a standout.
I just wanted to say that because of how ridiculous it is.
That's certainly a title.
I don't know what the point of this game will be.
I don't.
Like Bridge Constructor Portal makes sense, but build Bridge Constructor Walking Dead? Like where's the crossover here?
Money.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just like, what is that gonna look like? I'm super curious. I've heard the other Bridge Constructor games are good, but they're super specifically targeted at people that like Bridge Constructor. All right, then we saw Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, which I think looks very cool. The gameplay is completely different.
Yep.
It actually has like lightsaber combat. You've got different vehicle stuff. There's voice acting that I think was new, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
like these lines were not from the movies.
They introduced voice acting with Lego Force Awakens, from what I remember.
Yeah, but it's new voice acting, right? It's not.
It is new.
Lego Lord of the Rings, they used clips from the movies. I think this definitely didn't sound like it was from the movies. It sounded like new stuff. I mean, I hope Mark Hamill is doing Luke's voice because he is a prolific voice actor.
I hope so.
But it was hard to tell just because he has such a vocal range. It's hard to tell if that was him or not.
His cadence and his entire just voice is.
There's also a lot of very good Luke impersonators, so it could certainly be someone doing that voice. But this trailer was impressive. It's really sold me. We did get a delay of this game to next year, spring 2021. So it's a ways off.
But it's a safe bet. It's a Lego game. It's a safe bet that it's going to be bare minimum fun. Like,
dude, guys, Yaddle
in the game.
Yaddle is in the game.
The one thing
I
that worries
jumped
me,
out of my seat.
I will be
when I
very
saw
worried if we
Yaddle.
don't get like some Clone Wars references in this.
Oh yeah.
I'm very
What-
much hoping we at least see like Ahsoka and Rex, but
and
regardless, this
some-
game looks super interesting.
Some non-movie things would be nice like that.
And I love the idea of playing through the Star Wars sequel trilogy just when they're all completely goofy. Like instead of
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to take anything seriously, it's all just goofs, which is what this looks
Finally.
like, and I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. So that looks great. That's most of the Gamescom major announcements. Does anyone have other Gamescom things they want to talk about?
There's so much. Like I don't even. There's so much
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
we
won't
also
fly
saw
in my
Ratchet
brain.
and Clank again. I forgot to mention that. We saw
Yeah,
more Ratchet and Clank. It looks very good.
I guess. Yeah, that was something that I probably would have thought of to mention. Looks good. I the only Ratchet and Clank game that I played was the rebootquel, whatever, on PlayStation 4, and I loved it. So
Yeah, which this one is supposedly related to that, but maybe not a direct sequel. So it's in this new continuity. Yeah. Is that everything for Gamescom? Nobody else got Gamescom news they want to talk about?
For the 7 Ace Combat fans that exist, there's a new DLC coming out, and also another game called Project Wingman that's basically just Ace Combat, but finally a competitor to make them make more game, I guess. It literally looks exactly the same. It's just made by like a small indie studio. Oh, there actually was something big I want to talk about. I don't know if any of you have looked at the Elden Ring subreddit within the last few months, but
Dude, they're
everyone
exploding.
has gone insane because Elden Ring was not shown at Gamescom. There's a man, the YouTube channel is Elden Ring News, and every single day he posts a news update for Elden Ring. And for the last 77 days, the videos have been 20 seconds long, and it's just him. Yeah, well, today's August whatever. There's been no news for Elden Ring today. Goodbye. Just
That's
for
hilarious.
77 episodes. It's amazing. People
That's
have
amazing.
people have been just like asking to turn it into a bug snack subreddit. People have been asking what their favorite Bakugan is. People are now saying that Elden Ring is not real anymore. They're all like laughing at each other and calling each other hollows. Like I don't know if they're just being in character or just actually insane because so many of the posts and then replies are just screaming
Yeah.
and random
I heard-
gibberish. It's amazing.
I heard there was this. Maybe I'm confusing it with something else, but I heard this thing where like the Elden Ring fans I can't even call them fans because we've barely seen anything. But like the Elden Ring people who are excited for Elden Ring were so excited for it that they started creating their own lore. Like
Yeah.
before we barely seen
they
anything.
have. It's great. I love it.
There have been like I was just scrolling down it, and there were multiple times where people post, "Oh my god, guys, I'm so sad. I woke up and I dreamt that Elden Ring was announced."
I'm like,
Like, I
we
dreamt that they
haven't
showed us
seen
the
the
trailer.
game at all. You're
Like look, I understand, you know, the people that make Dark Souls, they're teaming up with like I get how that's exciting, but we haven't seen anything. I'm so shocked that people are this like if you're legitimately that excited, like, you know, more power to you, it's fine. But I'm just confused because we've had nothing to go on.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
really
I'm
funny,
excited,
though.
but like again, we have nothing to go
Not
on.
this though. You're not this. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think a lot of the reality of Reddit is that it's mostly memes. It's
Yeah.
probably just people having fun. I don't think anyone is taking it seriously there. So, yeah, so far no Elden Ring at Gamescom. Maybe there's gonna be like a weird last minute Gamescom Elden Ring announcement. I don't know. But so far nothing. And I think Gamescom is technically over at this point. So
Yeah.
yeah, it might have like one last roundup of announcements, but as of right now, it's pretty much over. And Elden Ring is nowhere to be seen. So,
Oh well.
oh well. All right. That means we're into our major discussion point. You know what? It'd be great if Elden Ring released in early access. Not actually, please don't.
No,
But
no, I don't think FromSoft would do that. They haven't
Yeah,
done
I
it
don't-
before.
they
Why start
wouldn't.
now?
I think FromSoft would not risk their reputation like that.
No.
But you know who would? Whoever developed Anthem. Oh wait, it's BioWare.
Yada-da-da-da-da.
Okay, so
Help me.
all right. So we're gonna talk about what it's like looking at indie early access versus AAA early access and how the differences do.
How the difference?
Yes.
Well done.
How differences do. We
How
have done it.
do the differences do?
And I think this is a little bit of a weird thing because AAA early access is pretty rare for the most part. Like the only ones I can really think of, Fortnite is technically, I don't know if they're still a beta, but they were beta for a very long time while they were still wildly popular.
Is that true, or is Battlefield 5 early access when it launched? Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Well,
like
you know, it had a beta watermark when it launched, and I was
You're
super
right.
confused about it.
And I'm
Warzone.
talking
yeah, Warzone didn't it?
It technically
way-
launched in the beta.
I mean,
The
Hyperscape
way-
is
yeah,
early access too.
the way how certain games will launch betas that are clearly just demos. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
early access, I think to me kind of blanket covers betas too, because I mean it is technically.
yeah. I think
early
if we're
access,
including
right?
AAA, we kind of have to include those betas because
Well, because
sure.
that's the AAA
Yeah.
way of doing early access.
I mean, the reality for like indie devs is that early access is a good way to help fund development if you need it, and
Yeah.
if you're assuming your game is in a good enough position to be playable for a good amount of time when you launch on early access, it's also a great way to get feedback about what could be changed or stuff that people want to see in the game if you're open to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
playtesters.
games like Satisfactory, Factorio did that and have had a great run of early access. Risk of Rain 2.
Minecraft.
Yeah, Minecraft, like I think is the poster child for doing it right.
Yeah.
Risk of Rain 2 had a great early access run. Yeah, there's
Kerbal
tons
Space
of games.
Program
But I mean,
was
what's
in beta,
important
wasn't it?
about-
Or it was in early access.
Yes,
Was it?
it was.
What was?
Kerbal Space Program.
Oh yeah, KSP.
I mean, No Man's Sky is not actually in early access, but technically
I mean, it
it
should've
was
been.
pretty similar to that development path.
Well, that's one of the things that's considered a problem because they didn't say it was early access. I don't know. But people also have problems with games like I'm highly invested in the Tarkov community, as many people know.
You play
but-
Tarkov?
Oh yeah, just a little bit.
Oh, That's weird.
Anyway, people just get mad at that game all the time when they're like, "Oh, they need to be fixing all this shit." And it's hard to say, like, is a game that's been in early access for so long, like, at what point is it getting ridiculous that it's
Yeah.
not like it's not done? But like, because Tarkov has so much content, like to me, that's a full game already. But
Well, I
people
think
are
the thing to me, having played Tarkov from the perspective of someone who's not incredibly into it, is the stuff I want to see from Tarkov is stuff like a new player experience deal.
You see, well, if
Like
you
a
talk to some people,
tutorial.
they would say that they don't want that because some people's favorite part about Tarkov is having no tutorial and learning everything.
I mean, I think that's fair,
But-
but at the same time, like me having to go into the menu to learn that I can do like peeking,
Yeah.
and like if you play for the first time and you launch into a map, you have literally no clue what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
And it's stuff like the basic tutorials are things I think should have been in the game already and desperately need to be to get new players.
Right. They're planned. But that's the thing. Why aren't they in the game yet?
Yeah.
Like when does saying something is planned turn into just like
Exactly.
kind of an excuse?
But I mean, Tarkov is a situation where I think they have a strong enough player base that they don't necessarily
They
need
do,
to do a bunch
yeah.
of new player stuff. They can just make more.
It's
content.
definitely at a point where if you want new player stuff, you go watch videos on YouTube.
Yeah. But I also think like there's a at a point that will hit a like breaking point of people will either get bored of the game and move on to another game that is in that style that they like, which right now I don't think doesn't really exist.
To be fair, yeah,
There
that's.
will-
I mean, I wouldn't
something
be
will come
surprised
up.
if another game like Tarkov came out. I'm sure a lot of people would move to it because there is a lot of stuff that people are frustrated with about Tarkov.
Yeah, but I think Tarkov like it plays super well,
Yeah.
and the gameplay I think is almost rock solid. It's just stuff like UI needs some work, I think.
UI needs work. Their network infrastructure needs
Yeah,
work.
absolutely.
But I don't know.
Yeah. And their business model bit concerning. The whole like upgrade tier system for more inventory space.
Well, you can get that in the game now, but
I mean, can you get like the
They're-
special boxes and whatnot that store items?
you can get a
faster?
bigger box. When you complete the game, you get the biggest box in the game.
Oh, okay. So it is obtainable.
Yeah, and they're planning on getting rid of the like whole EOD thing, like in the big upgrade tiers once the game goes into 1.0. But again, when is 1.0? Like,
Yeah.
probably not for another couple of years.
I mean, we have Star Citizen, which I think is a good example of early access done very wrong.
Ha ha ha
Yeah.
ha ha.
The
But
thing
it
is, people
works.
still like that game. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Star Citizen, I played like years and years ago. I played, and the fact that I have to say that I can say I
Right.
played this game like 4+ years ago, and it was in like this demo state. It was super fun. Like I played the assault, like the flight dogfighting sim thing, and that was super fun. Like, it was some of the most advanced and like customizable flight systems I've seen for space sim combat, and it was like just arcadey enough to not be super aggravating like Elite is sometimes.
I think one of the main problems with Star Citizen is that early access has allowed them to be
they've
unbelievably
inflated
ambitious.
what the game is to a
Just
point that
ridiculously ambitious.
it's
Like,
basically
there's-
impossible for them to deliver.
Yeah.
And I think
And the fact that they made so much money in early access
and are
gave them
continuing to make that much money.
right, exactly, is giving them like they can do this sustainably and try and have this huge vision for, I mean, foreseeably forever. But
Yeah, but nothing is actually launching. from what
nothing's
we know.
happening. Right.
And people are getting like little content updates. Like, they have a ton of tech stuff that's really, really cool. But it's like, when will that be put into a game? Like, there needs to be a game around that for it to be
Like,
interesting.
they showed Mark Hamill in cutscenes like years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
where's
he
that?
gone? Where's Mark Hamill gone? All right. So
For me, early access is weird because I usually don't get a game if it's an early access, just because I want to enjoy a game when it releases, and I'd hate to play a game for a bunch of hours and then just be done with it by the time it releases.
So,
I feel like that would happen a lot.
The way I tend to look at early access nowadays, just because there's so much of it, especially in the genres that I like to play, I don't buy, like, if it says early access, I basically accept the fact that right now is as much of a game as I'm going to get. So I'll buy the game once I think it's worth the money they're asking for it.
yeah,
Like,
I
if
think that's
it's-
absolutely the way to approach it.
I don't purchase games on a promise anymore. I buy
like-
games for what they are. Like,
Yeah, I picked up Satisfactory in early access, but like, I've
Right.
gotten so much enjoyment out of that game just at the state it was in when it launched, that I don't feel, even if they stopped
Right.
development completely, I would not feel
and like
gypped.
Factorio and Risk of Rain 2, like all those games, when I bought them, were worth the whatever money I paid for them at the time.
Yeah. Because I
Now
think that's the differentiation between like Kickstarter and early access, in that Kickstarter, it's accepted to be much riskier
right.
because you are essentially funding ideas that would not be made otherwise.
Yeah.
Whereas
You
with
are
early
funding a
access,
promise.
there's an expectation with early access that the thing is going to come out and will be a complete product, but you need to be aware when you're buying it that plans change, things might happen, the devs might be not great, and maybe just
Right.
won't develop the game.
It's still a risk, but
yeah.
it's supposed to be less of a risk.
And I think generally, like, early access done by trusted companies, like Hades is been in early access
Yeah.
for a very long time, was solid when it came out in early access, and has continued to be solid and get like large content updates consistently prior to launch. So it's definitely a like pick who you're looking at kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is kind of telling to me, I think, in a lot of like games that go from early access to launch, they don't have a very exciting launch, just because like the game has already been out
yeah.
for most part. Like, it's just another update. Like Risk of Rain 2, like, 1.0, but it was a cool update, 1.0. But like, it wasn't like the game
Yeah, but it is
released and
just
everybody
another
was,
update,
like,
right?
losing their mind. Yeah. It's just another update.
Mhm.
That now makes the game feature complete to the point where like what they said it was going to be.
I've seen there's this attitude of like, it's weird to see AAA games in early access just because they're AAA products, and it's an interesting argument, I guess, because I've thought a lot about like whether AAA games should be in early access, or like whether it's weird or out of place for them to be in early access.
I think it's fine if they do it right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's whatever, as long as you're not, peddling a demo as a beta, or just, trying to grab a little bit of extra money a month before launch. Like,
I mean,
you're
Baldur's
like,
Gate
I
3 is
think-
coming out in early access very soon. In fact, it might be today.
Right.
or tomorrow.
I think for the most part, I agree with that. But
Oh no, it's next month. It's September 30th.
for the most part, I agree with that. But there is something I think about where it's like part of the reason you get a AAA, part of the reason you buy into a AAA experience is that you don't have things like that. Like the game just kind of comes
Right.
out because it had the
You-
funding ahead of time. Like
right.
AAA studios, in theory, should have the money so that they don't have to do something like early access.
Yeah.
That's
Because
true.
it's supposed to be early access is there for people who who can't fund their entire game, so they release either a work in progress, a section of the game ahead of launch so they can get more money to finish funding. And when
And
you
get
look at
some,
it,
like beta testing, where
Yeah,
AAA, they don't need that money.
yeah, I mean AAA studios, I mean they have like full QA booths set up with all sorts of
Right.
crazy stuff in it. It's but I think a lot of people's thing is that it's like if you're paying for a AAA experience, then early
It should
access
be, yeah.
seems like out of the question in a way, because it's like we're paying for not strategies like this. We're looking for these larger, more well-funded studios for a more
So we can buy a product that we know is going to be good.
well,
But well,
Oh,
that's
no,
the
it will
idea. That's the
is being
idea,
made.
yeah, that's the
right? But
and I do understand that perspective, definitely.
Yeah, so
but then
there's
you run into a situation where it's like, oh, you have you have a freaking Obsidian who's making a bunch of different projects, and right now they're making Grounded, which is by a much smaller team, probably has a lot less of a focus on it because it's a smaller project, a smaller team, and so they're putting it into early access because they have their sites elsewhere, which I can understand.
Yeah, but if a game like it bugs me when games like Call of Duty and Battlefield have these betas that you needed to buy into, so they're trying to get extra money from their fan base so that they can basically get paid to have a few extra stress testers on their servers or something, or
Mhm.
just to like build a little bit of, like, I don't know, it's
I think as soon as you
It's
do
greedy.
that, I think as soon as you
People
do
see it.
that, it tells me that you're not releasing a beta, because if
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
releasing
It's
a
not,
true beta and you wanted QA feedback from that, you should not have to force people to pay for that. Like, it just makes it obvious at this point, this isn't a beta, this is advertising.
Yeah,
It's
it's also like the
advertising
feedback you
and-
get from random people and the feedback you get from paid QA testers is incredibly different, right?
Yeah.
Because paid QA testers are professional. They know exactly what they're looking for and like how to give that feedback in the way that's constructive to the developers. Whereas everyone knows what the Steam forums are like if you look at early access games.
where Timmy's going to
it's
get
a
shot in the head
Zepster.
across the map and
Yep.
say that the game is broken because there's already cheaters and it was actually just some random dude who had a nice shot. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up Call of Duty as an example, because with a game like that has such a massive fan base, there's so many people that are pulling it in different directions and want different things from it. It
Yeah.
must be a nightmare. It must be an absolute disaster
Absolutely.
that's
to
the thing.
QA a Call of Duty game, because it's like you have so many people that want different things. Some people want advanced movement, some people don't. Some people want World War II, some people want modern, some people want futuristic. It's insane.
I mean, that kind of thing happens post-release too. I mean, everybody loses their like. A lot of people like the movement, or I don't know if a lot of people do, but I know some people like the movement upgrade, like updates in Halo 5, and some people think it's the worst thing.
Yeah,
since
who would
ever.
like advanced movement in Halo 5? What an asshole.
No, I
Whoever
mean, it's
would
just-
do that.
I can't
I-
even imagine.
I'm only
Fake
saying that
Halo
'cause I think-
fan.
I was watching Summit 1G, and he made some good points about it. He was like, "Man, the movement in the old Halos is just stupid and boring. It's like it's old, it's antiquated." But then a lot of people like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
and
it's
also at the same time, like I know Brett White and I have been going back and playing the old Halo games, and they hold up incredibly well.
they do.
Yeah.
Like they're
'Cause
just
I did
still
play-
stupid fun.
Reach when
Um,
that came out in MCC. For
Yeah,
PC.
but the lack of advanced movement is more of a like style. It's not inherently bad or good. It just means you play the
Yeah.
games differently,
Yeah.
and there will be people that prefer how you play advanced movement stuff, and people that prefer how you don't. And that's like early access is, I think, an
Right.
opening for those people to voice their opinions in ways that may not be constructive to the game's development.
Right. But going back to Call of Duty, do you really think they listen to anybody when they release a beta 3 weeks before?
Well,
the
yeah,
game comes out?
exactly.
Yeah,
No.
I
absolutely
was
not.
just gonna say that because like all these issues that we're talking about, they take more than like a month to
Well,
the
fix
Avengers
if you
beta
really
is
want to
a-
do a
a
good
prime
job
example.
fixing them.
Because Avengers
Yeah.
beta is in a terrible state. I think almost
Exactly.
universally agreed. Like there are definitely people who have fun with the gameplay, but I think looking past the gameplay, there are so many issues with just performance and the visual bugs and just like bonkers bugs happening everywhere that like there's no way this is all fixed by the time it launches.
And that's not even like QA test. Like that's not even. That's just like, oh, your game is broken.
Yeah,
Like
it's
you
like
don't need to
something's
pay
busted.
somebody to tell you that.
Yeah, and
then
as a
on
lot
top
of
it,
us,
it's got this terrible business model.
yeah, and as someone, and I feel like, you know, maybe I can't speak for Ryan, but I feel like he would feel similarly. As someone who knows, who's, you know, made projects before and knows what game development is like, calling a small section of your game that you released 3 weeks before the game's released a beta is kind of insulting in a way, because
Yeah.
again, it has that expectation of, oh, well, if anything's broken, you just gotta wait. And you can see it all over the place whenever a beta comes out, and it's like there's a lot of problems here. People are like, oh no, it's fine, they'll fix it before it's a beta. It's like they have 3 weeks. You think they can fix this mountain of bugs, design issues, whatever the heck, in 3 weeks? No, of course not.
Yeah, and it also has a side effect of like diluting the terminology. Where beta, when you say that to a developer should know what beta means. But
the thing is, I'm sure
because
game
this
devs
is
do.
happening now, it's making like beta now can mean a bunch of different things. It can mean an
Yeah.
actual beta. It could mean you're doing like a demo beta. It could mean a beta that's like in an early access period, which is inherently going to be developed with like more polish focus so that people don't get game breaking bugs. But maybe the gameplay's not as refined. You know, it means completely different things in different sectors now, which is weird.
And another sign you can tell is that when they release a quote unquote beta, they're usually like, betas do not look like this. They don't look this polished. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a demo. They took a section of their game that they like polished and prettied up for people to consume. This is not a beta. It's way too polished for a beta. You know what I mean? It's way too far along for that.
I think most of it comes down to when it comes out at the end of the day. Because
Yeah.
like if it comes out, you know, 3 weeks before the release, whether or not it's polished or not, it's not a beta. They're not
Yeah.
looking for testing. If anything, at best, it is a server stress test.
If your game
At
is in
best,
beta
yeah.
3 weeks before, if your game is in beta 3 weeks before launch, you have problems.
Right.
Unless it's
Something,
launching into early access, at which point it's probably
Right.
acceptable.
something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But-
if your full game is being released 3 weeks after your beta, something went wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
I don't
so. A good thing to look for probably how to do. It's not in early access yet, so we don't know. But Baldur's Gate 3 is coming to early access September 30th. Larian has done early access with games before. They did it with Divinity: Original Sin 2, which is like one of the most well-renowned CRPGs to be on PC. Like, it is an incredible game. And it handled early access very well, where you get like a solid portion of refined content at the start, which is like the first act of 3, while they are fixing bugs in the other 2 acts and making sure that stuff there is going well. And then they'll release more content over time for you to do and have fun with. And like they use their early access audience as both beta testers in the fashion that they get to kind of shape how the game is actually developed, and they also get like valuable feedback from maybe something isn't working as intended, or maybe there's a bug, or maybe something is working. Like they know they hit something really well, that they can keep doing that. And I think that was an approach that worked really well for Divinity 2. So hopefully it works just as well for Baldur's Gate 3 when that comes out into it. But that's, I think, one of the only large, like very large studio examples of early access being handled that way. And it's also they're generally only in early access for under a year. It's like the early access period is mostly the polishing stage, and like the stage where they're making sure all the quest dialogue and whatnot is working, and making sure content's in, like all the tools are made, all the assets are pretty much finalized. It's just finishing the game essentially,
And
which I think
what
is the
used-
proper way to handle it.
Yeah, and what used to be a big issue, not so much now, it still happens now, but not nearly as much. Like back, 2013 to 2016, I'd say, there was a huge problem of people just flooding Steam with quote unquote early access games. It was just an excuse to like throw in some Unity assets and call it early access,
Yeah.
That used to be a huge issue, just because it gave, and that's why I was always so hesitant of anything with the early access label, because for the longest time it was just something that was an excuse to release an incomplete, broken product to get money and then just walk away from the project.
And that still does happen. It's just far less common.
Oh yeah, people
And
are a lot
Steam
wiser
hides
to
it
that kind of
better.
thing.
Steam has become a lot better at hiding those things.
They're better at hiding it, but I think people like Jim Sterling also did a great job of bringing that issue to the to the spotlight more, and it just made it less of an issue as a result, which is good.
Yep, that's a good point. I think overall for indies, on the indie side of things, we do have a good AAA example that's happening right now of Grounded. Right?
Yeah.
Grounded is early access. It's game preview on Xbox. Yeah. And it's very clearly early access, and there's only a few hours of content to do. But what's there is very fun. It's very polished. It plays well. Like we did a bunch of multiplayer of it. It was a lot of fun.
Polished is a strong word.
Yeah, polished is a strong word, but what's there's no like instant game breaking.
It's playable.
Right?
It's playable.
And
Spiders
you can
might
put it a step
phase
above
through walls and get stuck, and then you can kill them super easy with bows and arrows and your spears from miles away. But that was fun because we killed a wolf spider, and we never thought we would.
Yeah, we died so many times trying.
And I guess this isn't fair, but like if an indie game is in early access, I'm like, okay, they probably need extra money. Whenever a AAA game says it's in early access, I always raise an eyebrow.
Yeah.
I'm so suspicious of any, because like even H1Z1, which was like a Sony computer entertainment project, was like a survival zombie kind of Daisy style thing.
H1Z1.
Yeah, exactly. And that was in early access for the longest time. It's like, I'm sorry, this is from the same people who like produce games like God of War and stuff like that, and you have this like early access like survival game on PC. Like, what's going on here? Like, it's so suspicious, and I hate that because it doesn't seem fair. But at the same time, it is kind of fair because again, this is Sony Computer Entertainment we're talking about. I mean, you just have to look at their past work as an example of like, this is what this publishing, this is what this publishing group is capable of. It's just bizarre.
Yeah. And I also think in the example of stuff like Grounded, I think a big part of it is that early access lets them get feedback from people a lot easier, especially depending at the stage of development they're on. Like, that feedback will be pretty important. And also, like, easy access to huge numbers of statistics of, like, do players do this? Do players do that? Like, what is the common loop that people like to do, and what is stuff they don't like to do? Yeah. Which is usually a really important thing to find out that a lot of games can't find out until after they release because it needs to release, right? That happens a lot for like free-to-play games where they'll maybe release an update, and that update either will be really great or not great, and they need to fix a bunch of stuff. And they had to release it because you have to release something, or your game's not going to make money. And I think right now we're seeing indies make good use of early access of launching and again getting money to finish development, or in some cases getting just feedback if they're like Kickstarter funded or stuff that's already been funded to a good degree and has like a backing or investors. But with AAA, usually you can be confident those games will get made, but they may not be great, right?
Well, they'll be out there. Whether they're good or not is a different story entirely, but they're out there.
Yeah, I think like how Grounded goes forward is something I'm going to be super interested in, just because I want to see how they're going to handle updates for that game. Because as of right now, I don't think we've heard a lot about it. Whereas with something like Satisfactory, we got like monthly updates of pretty large content drops. And like now the game is very different from when it started, but it started at a very solid position and has just gotten better over time. Whereas I'm concerned that Grounded might have some issues of like some changes needing to be made with like especially progression loops of right now they kind of have like 3 hours of progression and then it just kind of stops. And it's like, where else are they going to go? Are like we going to go in the house? I don't know. Maybe. That'd be cool.
I feel like there is an interesting parallel between games that are in early access and updates come out to polish the game and add content to it leading up to its release.
Yeah.
And you place that in parallel with games that are quote unquote out and have like some sort of roadmap that adds more content to the game, and it feels just as broken and just as light on features, even though it's a fully released game.
Yeah.
It's so strange. Like you look at something like Battlefield 5, that game was buggy as hell and there just wasn't as much content as there should have been for a AAA release. And as the tides of war kept going on, they were fixing things. They made a lot of balance changes. They added content to it, and I'm like, this feels like an early access game because it still doesn't feel finished. It feels very buggy.
I would say that's like even like an extreme example because like you say fixing, but like DICE now has that reputation of just breaking more things and fixing them. And like even now, like the same thing is with Rainbow Six. Like that's another game that game's been out for years, and it's still like I think up until maybe like a couple months to like half a year ago, like ranked for Rainbow Six still had a beta logo on it, and it's still a broken game 90% of the time.
Yeah.
They've completely redone the team, so maybe that'll change. But like, I don't know. I like that even brings up like another thing. Like, if the game is like that, and like in a released state, it's taking like 4 or 5 years to get quote unquote fixed. Like, if it was to stay in development, like, would it even end up coming out like at all, or would it just get just like shoved on the shelf?
Yeah,
I don't know. Like there's a big like naming discrepancy for all of this. Like I feel like the indies have a really good like grasp on what is a beta and what is a demo, and because like if like we've talked about what like a beta is, it's like the early access thing where you like it's like months and months before the game comes out. It might not be very finished, but you can get a taste of what it is, and they get some free testing. But like a demo can be a thing like a couple like weeks before the game comes out, and it's like the first like mission or the first like hour or something, and maybe it's free. And they like I don't know, AAA games have been doing that for years, like decades, because they used to give that on like I don't know the demo for Metal Gear Solid 2 came on the disc of Zone of the Enders, and no one played Zone of the Enders because they wanted to play the demo to Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, there were whole discs dedicated to just game demos.
yeah, and they were just
demo
whole demo discs. And like, I don't know why we've lost that thing. And I guess it's just come with the fact that companies now they just have new ways of making money.
Yeah,
I
and
guess they
demos
just
are far
wanna
less
capitalize on
popular.
that. It sucks because like they just should be demos. I feel like
Well, I think a
it'd
lot of
be
the time, like
healthier.
the reality of games too is that you make internal demos a lot,
Yeah,
like for either team members to play and get a sense of the game, or for like conventions and stuff like that. But a lot of the
Vertical
time,
slices are common.
yeah, a lot of the time
commonly
those
done.
demos aren't
So.
polished enough to necessarily release as a public thing. Although I do like we did get recently like the whole push at the Game Awards last year to do like all these demos of all the indies they were showing. We got like the Spiritfarer demo and the Haven demo and everything, and those were short like convention style demos, but they were very fun. Like they they were nice like 20-minute chunks of these games that you could play and know if you were into them. Like that's what sold Spiritfarer to me. And I think that's something that was really cool for those games, and I think a lot of people will be sold on games like Haven that wouldn't have been able to play them before because they got to try it. And like the weird thing to me is that there's a Tony Hawk remaster for 1 and 2 coming out in a few days. You know, if you pre-order, you get the warehouse demo, which is literally 2 minutes long. It is a 2-minute demo, but it's so goddamn good. I literally played it for an hour today, the same 2-minute section over and over because it's so good. And I feel like if you just released that demo for free, you would have so many more people interested in this game, like because it's proof that they are going back to a style that people like. And I'm like, why not just release that?
Yeah,
I get they probably wanted a pre-order incentive, but
yeah,
there's other ways to do that.
One of the craziest demos I ever saw was which one is it? Dragon Quest, was it 9 or whatever it's called? Like the most recent one that just came out
11
on Switch. 11, thank you.
11S had a demo that was like 4 hours long minimum.
It's crazy, and like 4 hours is a lot for a.
I think
I thought it was,
if you did the side stuff, you could be like 10 to 11 hours of content.
Yeah, it was a big demo, which is super generous. And also, no, they didn't call it a beta; they called it a demo, like they should.
Well, it's also that game had been out. by the time that demo was made, that game had been out on PC for like a year.
Oh, shows you how much I know about Dragon Quest.
I remember playing the Mirror's Edge demo just over and over again because it basically just
Yeah.
gave you like the beginning training area. But I would just run it because the movement in Mirror's Edge is so much fun. But it just made me want so much more. Yeah, the game ended up being kind of just okay because I wasn't very good at it. But I still
I like that game.
I like it too. No, I love it now. But I was like 12, so I just was
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
not
sure.
have the finger dexterity to understand how to pull half of this shit off that it needed me to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all fair points. Okay, we've run our gamut of discussion topics. I think
I think
Yeah.
we just need to accept the fact that our shows are an hour and a half to 2 hours now.
we said that. I said that at the start. I said we're talking.
Yeah.
We had to cover all this in an hour and a half, which is the goal.
Well, no, but like normally,
I know, but
we usually
said
try and
that.
keep it under an hour.
It's not gonna happen.
No, we haven't done that for the past 10 weeks, Wyatt. I have all the recordings.
fair.
The time. We'll check right now.
There's no
Right?
Ryan. There is no proof that our
Guys.
videos have exceeded an hour. There's no proof.
You know, this is our closing game. We don't normally do closing games, but let's look. When was the last Double on Radio podcast? That
Closing
was
game title.
under an
Let's make
hour.
Wyatt look like an idiot.
It was Double on Radio Weekly number 10. That is 22 regular episodes behind us, but also 4 Gamescasts or Games Clubs.
God, we've done that many episodes. Jesus.
Yeah, we've done a good amount. That was the last
Oh.
one that was under an hour, and even then, right immediately before that, we had an hour and 20-minute one about Mass Effect. So we've run the gamut. Yeah, I think now for the most part, it's an hour and a half to 2 hours. But we've
Back
talked
in the
about
day when
everything
we were a
aimed to
Star Wars
talk about.
podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Star Wars today, so it's not completely gone. I don't think we talked about Halo, but now we've talked about Halo.
No, we
did
did
talk
a little
about
bit.
it.
We
Yeah,
talked
we
about the
did.
movement.
we sprinkled it in there, here and there.
Yeah.
It's so normalized, you can just like forget about it. It just slips right in.
So yeah, any closing notes about anything we talked about today people want to mention before we go into shoutouts?
Video games.
Do video games? You know what? Video games are fun, right? That's what we're here for.
You might be
They
right.
are.
Video games are
Sometimes.
kind of really cool. And
Yeah,
I you know what? I like them a little bit. I like them quite a bit.
Just a little, though.
Controversial.
Yeah. All right. So that's the Gamescom wrap up. We'll probably any stragglers that we missed from Gamescom will be on next week's episode, as well as there was a Nintendo partner showcase that we could have talked about, but it was pretty much entirely rhythm games, and Puyo Puyo 2. And I mean, Puyo Puyo 2 is exciting for puzzle game fans and like Tetris style game fans, but that's about it. So there's not a ton to talk about in that partner showcase. So if anything about that seems super important, we'll talk about it next week. But as of right now, it wasn't that interesting. If you're into rhythm games, check it out. But aside from that, not a lot really happening with Nintendo, which is weird because they don't have. Usually they have bangers this time of the year. They got a few games cooking to release towards holiday, but they don't really have anything right now. So
Not yet.
we might see something, but whether or not we do is highly up for how COVID has affected their development. All right, yeah. So I think we're safe to move into shoutouts. We're gonna go down the line. Ben, that means you're on the spot.
All right. Shout out to this video that I just found of an Oblivion character voiced by Todd Howard in one of the little console commands where you can type in like COC testing halls or whatever. It's in there, and there's a character that's voiced by Todd Howard, and it has a bunch of different like emotes that you can click on. It's like angry, and then he says some stupid line, but it's Todd Howard, and he's really bad at voice acting, and it's hilarious.
Oh, that's fun. All right, Brett, it's your choice. Your
Um,
moment.
Shout out to the Dreamcast for being apparently really difficult and awful to emulate because I've been trying to do it all night and it's not working.
It is. It's one of those consoles.
I hate it. I just want to
more
play a
that,
game
like-
called Egg. I'm serious.
It's more like only half of the games will work because the games were
Ugh.
programmed very weirdly, from my knowledge.
Hmm,
It's like
funny
the PS3.
architecture.
The PS3 had
see.
funny architecture too. All right. You know, I gotta give my shout out to the Tony Hawk demo. The fact that I could spend, I think, over an hour at this point. I literally played it for like almost 2 hours, I think, of a 2-minute demo. Speaks to how good that gameplay is. Like it's mind-numbingly amazing that we're getting a skateboarding game that's returning to the roots of good skateboarding games. That's it, Wyatt. You can go.
Shout out to Deep Rock Galactic. That's like the game I've been playing for the past week, and probably one of my games of the year at the moment. It's really, really good. I would say it's a mixture of like kind of Minecrafty elements and Left 4 Dead, where you play as space dwarves. So I mean, sold. You know,
It's a very fun game.
it's very.
It
good.
also ties in the early access story. That game was in early access for a long time, but was
for a
good the entire
long time. Yeah, I
And-
can't
and
believe I
when it
didn't
released,
mention that
it
in
was
this
kind of a
entire
whisper.
conversation.
It was kind of a
Like-
whisper when it released because they had basically finished the game before that. The release was just like, hey, the game doesn't bug out anymore.
I'm kind of really sad that I didn't bring it up during our conversation. Now that I think about it.
No, I mean it's not. It's one of those cases of like that game was just polished always. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to end out on. Have a good night, everyone. We're gonna play the outro. Get out of here. We'll be back next week. Don't worry.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father.
That's a copyrighted phrase, Ben. You can't say that on the podcast.
You're lying, and it's copyrighted. I can't believe you do such a thing.
Uninstall, Ben. Uninstall.
Has my mic really been crackling?
A
A little bit. Not the entire
It
time. A
wasn't
little
too
bit.
bad. It was just when you were speaking that last part.
Okay, I don't know